Aston Villa have won 25 Premier League games in 2023, which is the most they've ever done in their entire history. There's 3 games more left on the calendar, and I think you've got to fancy Aston Villa to do very, very well over those next 3 games, knowing that every one of them just adds further into the history books the year that Unai Emery and Aston Villa have had. They're currently sitting joint third or second, depending on how you want to think of it, with Liverpool in the Premier League. And over the next 4 fixtures, one of them does fall into January next year. It is, for me, an absolute make or break stage of the season that really could elevate Aston Villa into genuine title contention. They've just overcome a massive speed bump, or overcame a massive challenge, broke through a massive barrier that normally we associate with championship winning teams. Now, I know you might be thinking they're sitting Quinny, they beat what was essentially 10-man Brentford 2-1, no big deal. But if you actually watched the game, it was much, much more than that. Aston Villa and Unai Emery have been famed, or they've been doing, making headlines, getting attention for their style of play, the amount of goals they're scoring, and the style of play that Unai Emery himself personally has managed to impose on the pitch itself. But Brentford, for me, are probably top 6 or 7 teams in the league for those same types of attributes. Very well organised, of the level, every player on the pitch. Doesn't matter who is in the starting 11 for Brentford. Brentford are one of the most who's going to turn up teams that are in the league over the last 2 or 3 years. And I think away from home, given the form that we're in, fantastic win with 1-0 at Man City, 1-0 at Arsenal, and games like this, we've seen kind of with Newcastle recently, if you don't follow up those big 6-point wins with these types of results, then you're never going to go on and win the big stuff. In the video today, we're going to be looking at exactly why it is impressive that Aston Villa dispatched with Brentford despite the way the game shook out and everything as well as these next 4 fixtures I'm talking about, and why they are so crucial for elevating Aston Villa and giving them a genuine contender status in the 23-24 Premier League season by looking at themselves and the other runners and riders at any point in the video today. If you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel. We are pushing for 10,000 subscribers, and we cannot do that without your support, guys. So if you enjoy the content here, hit the subscribe button for more to make sure you see it in your little feed and all that good stuff. Hit the like button and get into the comment section and let me know, can Villa become genuine contenders? Make sure you watch the video to help populate your comment as well. And yeah, let's just get stuck straight into it. Now, first of all, last season, Brentford were 7th in the table for home form, and this season, they're firmly around mid-table. Obviously, they just dropped some points at the weekend there, but before that, firmly around mid-table. So definitely a home venue, a home team that are well set up, and, they're familiar with getting results. And like I mentioned in the intro, this type of fixture is definitely one that you cannot underrate. And if you do want to go on and achieve something special, it's definitely a game that getting 3 points is going to make a massive improvement to your chances for doing that. But again, don't be mistaken, we're about to look at some heat maps and stuff like that, and I know some of it is going to be heightened because Brentford did spend like 20 minutes with 10 men, but as we look at the statistics here in the first half, like Aston Villa had clearly the majority of possession, goal scoring opportunities on and off goal, as well as some dead ball situations with corners and free kicks and whatever. They really should have themselves went in at half-time 1-0 up, but it was Brentford themselves. Now, one of the kind of wee underlying kind of narratives of this game was Alex Moreno. One of the great things about this Aston Villa squad is virtually every player that you ever see appearing, they do meaningfully contribute to the outcome of the games to a greater or lesser extent. We see some French players that feature ever so infrequently, some guys that feature more often than not. But even when somebody like Alex Moreno comes into the team after a long-standing injury, he made a huge impact on this match at both ends. Now, for Brentford's goal, he's definitely not got his in-game sharpness for, just the way he tries to clear that ball and lets the guy get the shot on target to score it. Now, there is a huge chunk of time that if you didn't actually watch the game, because it wasn't televised on Sky, I think it was the Wolves match, we won't talk about that, that was on, then it might feel like the game all happened quite quickly or whatever, but in that period of time between Brentford scoring and eventually Aston Villa, equalising and breaking the duck, a lot of things happened. Now, one of the most eye-catching things for me in this match is the different shape, the different style of play, the different formation that Unai Emery played in this game. Now, he's been very versatile, and normally when we see slight tweaks into this, it shows you what he's expecting from the opposition. The slight tweaks don't really make that much of a difference, ultimately, to how Aston Villa are going to try and attack and break teams down, as well as defend in numbers. But, like I say, they're very good at just making that slight adaptation to accommodate the opponent that they've got. And as we can see here, they basically set out with 3-5-2. You might think off the ball it's 5-3-2, or The shape moves throughout the pitch quite a lot, depending on where the ball is. But primarily, it was free at the back. And the heat maps has the centre-backs on the halfway line. Now, Brentford, at home especially, against, Aston Villa in that conversation now because of where they are on the table. Top elite Premier League opponents will sit in with their bank of 5 and 3, leave 2 pressing forwards and try and counter-attack and transition. And Unai Emery goes into this game unapologetic of the situation and changes the shape to accommodate that. He's going to leave 3 centre-backs. Between the 3 of them, I don't know if you would say they're quick enough to deal with, the likes of Wissa, Lewis Potter, I had to double check what that guy's name was, sorry, and then Mopai come on later on. You probably fancy them often enough to be able to cover up the ground, especially when you've got Emi Martinez, who is basically patrolling this area here also. So it means you've actually got a very good defence against their primary form of attack, and when you admit that going into the game, it means you can approach the whole game appropriately. Brentford do get the goal at the set piece against the run of play, really, you would say, and Aston Villa then proceed to dominate. And what I found really interesting about this is McGinn started to play much, much deeper in this game, and he was being much more of that kind of metronome figure, moving the ball from left to right. And Ramsey and wee Boobs, or wee Booby as I'm calling him here, were allowed to just go and double up wherever the ball was to cause an overload, to try and make some sort of play happen, whether it be on the left or the right hand side of the pitch. Now, for the majority of the first half, of course, with Diaby and Cash on this side here, they were getting very, very high. And when they've only got one wide defender, Brentford, because of the way they play, that really does just eat into a team like Aston Villa's hands. So setting out with this clear attack role of we're going to try and double up in these areas here and allow players like Boobs and Ramsey to go into these areas, because Brentford are going to be piling this area up with big strapping athletes, big powerhouse athletes in their back 5 and their midfield 3. And what is Camara and Ramsey both really good at? They're both really smart, good at tackling, have a lot of energy, very good at passing, and are very unselfish. So by having these 2 guys in here as a nice little tandem effort, staying wherever the ball was, staying close to transitions, both of them have great defensive capabilities to recover also with any midfielders that would go and try and join in attacking runs. Honestly, I thought it was absolutely amazing. McGinn's been playing a lot, so it was a good use of his abilities, as well as, maybe not totally killing him because he's been playing like left wing and attacking mid and stuff. Whereas in this game, he was much more of a commander-in-chief on the pitch, wearing that captain's armband and really, sending the attack dogs, Ramsey and Camara after the ball to go and play. Watkins I was really impressed with over the most part, but unfortunately his job in a game like this, for how deep, organised and how efficient Brentford are, it's a very thankless task, because he's got to be constantly working these defenders, moving in between them, in between blind spots. It's the ball on this side here, run off his shoulder on the blind spot, or come over the front of the goalkeeper for this ball here from deep, and do all these different types of things, keep the defenders on their toes, keep them guessing and shifting around to make sure that when some opportunities were coming in these areas, they're having to shuffle over, they're always unclear of who's got men, and ultimately I am now starting to get a bit ahead of myself, because it wasn't really working. They were getting close and close, but it just wasn't quite coming off for them. And on the 65th minute, before the red card, Emery makes a double change. Diaby comes off for John Duran, who we see operating really, really effectively, much more in the centre areas, and Cash comes off for Bailey. Now, at this point in the game, it is 11 versus 11, but Aston Villa are 1-0 down. They know their situation, and they are just going for it. Get an extra striker into the picture, make your wide player much more attacking. But Bailey, honestly, I was really super impressed with him over this game for his absolute endeavour. Opta, Y-Scout, all these kind of stat pages have clocked him positionally as being a right back in this game, which I find very funny, because he was actually very effective in an attacking sense in this match as well. And he is ultimately the guy that buys the red cards. Now, there is some contentious kind of moaning and groaning around the red card. There was few VAR contentious decisions, but I absolutely laughed my ass off at this one. The foul was the foul, and if we're going to use a still image, it's a red card all day. If you actually play the footage, I think he pulls out of it. I think the contact is minimal. You can even see that from the player's natural momentum reaction to the challenge or whatever. And, it really depends on where you sit. It's hard to argue against it being a red card, because he is going into it with his studs showing, and where how high it is off the ground, etc. There is no defending that necessarily. So it depends on how you individually kind of call these decisions. Everyone's a little bit different. It normally depends if it's for or against your team, which I know anyone watching this video probably isn't going to say it's not a red card, but I just have to put out that there from my own conscience. But the funniest thing about this VAR decision, right, is the referee initially gives it as a yellow card, right? and then he gets sent to the VAR monitor. And again, you won't get this if you just watch the highlights, but he was there for like, and anyone who went to the game will tell you this, he was there for like a real minute and a half, 2 minutes, watching replays of the game or of the incident. And I'll put it on screen now for you, but he himself is right smack bang in the middle of the VAR footage. He's got the perfect position for it. He's right in front of it. He's looking right at it. His decision's yellow card. Does he not know football? Does he not see that studs up hitting the leg like that with that amount of pace should have been a red card decision? Does he need to be sent to the monitor? Is he learning on the job? You know, the image of him standing at the side of the pitch, looking at a TV that he is in the middle of. I just found it hilarious. Referees, eh? And when we put Duran into this mixture, as on top of everything else that we've just been talking about here, you're forcing Brentford, and the midfield were much, much deeper than what I've got on screen here. Much, much deeper. They're shuffling from left to right. McGinn's moving the ball when he can. And, you know, Bailey's keeping nice and wide here, trying to come around on the outside because down to 10 men. Brentford just went deeper and deeper and narrower. So it's all about get the ball from one side to the other, make them shuffle over, try and lose the men in the crossover, in the transition of play. Try and find that little gap as the midfield shuffle across to try and play the ball into. And ultimately, it comes to McGinn. He does amazingly well to play the ball first time all the way on to the outside man. More often than not, people try and play that guy closest to him, but by firing the ball straight out there to the wide man, he's forcing the rest of the Brentford defence to instantly, totally change how high up they are in the pitch, what direction they're facing, and where they believe the next route to go from Villa could be in any of the kind of runs that the players might make and the runs that they're going to try and block off and such. And again, absolute credit for the delivery here. Sells the fake, comes back in on the inside, and the delivery is amazing because it gets high. It goes high up and over, and Alex Moreno just comes into picture very late, nice and wide, right at the last minute, and the ball drops. If you see how low Moreno has to go to make the header contact to actually score the goal, the ball's not hung up in the sky for long. You know, it is quite a quick delivery, but it goes up and high. It drops right on the spot, and Moreno just knows exactly where it's going to be. He times his run to perfection, and he puts it in the back of the net. And I thought it was a great little story from him coming back from injury, kind of giving away the goal in the first place in a roundabout way to then get the equaliser. I thought it was great for him personally, and ultimately this whole extra dimension that Villa gave us. At this point now, one each, two strikers up top. They've still got Mopai, who's going to try and counter-attack. They've still got one or two guys from midfield that might try and run on them. They're trying to get the ball high up the pitch, win throw-ins, win free kicks. They're still, it's one each. They're Brentford at home. It's not, it's the Premier League. You can't rule any of this stuff out. What is the next move? It's Pau Torres for Zaniolo, because you don't need three defenders anymore. They're only got one attacker. Let's leave Diego Carlos. Let's leave Konsa, Emi Martinez. They can deal with Mopai up here by himself. Let's get Zaniolo up here as an extra support to McGinn. Get Ramsey and wee Boobs a little bit higher up. And, you know, just even more havoc. Force the issue. Make it count. The time is against you here. There's only 90 minutes plus added time in a match. You're one each. The 3 points will go so far. With Brentford been down to 10 men and retreating all this ground, it would have been foolish not to do it. But so many managers bottle it and they don't take that opportunity. And honestly, the second goal is lovely. It comes from a corner, obviously. The lovely little flick on from camera. And then, boom, Ollie Watkins. The guy you want to be there. The top goal scorer. The main guy in attack for Villa comes up clutch at the right moment, at the right time to get the result over the line. And like I say, guys, normally these types of games for not just Villa, but all sorts of teams could end in a draw quite feasibly, or could end with a sucker punch and you actually ended up after equalising, maybe losing it. And Brentford look like the heroes all of a sudden down to their ingenious, you know, wait and lure you in and then counter-attack. Mood in the camp right now must be at an all-time high. Now, there's 3 more games left of 2023. Aston Villa could extend their record to 25 victories in theory. It's Sheffield United next at home. Should be party time at Villa Park, and then it is Man United away. Now, I seen Man United play Newcastle recently, and if that Man United turns up, you'll have no problem at all. But they did draw with 0-0 with Liverpool. Maybe they've got a little bit of their act together, and they might do something. Let's forget about that game, as we're kind of going to get a wee bit of a points tally on the go here for our imaginations of where this could go. After that is Burnley, Cup game in Middlesbrough we're going to ignore, and then in the 14th of January, we are away to Everton. Now, if you forget the Man United game, let's just forget about it. Let's just imagine it as 0 points. I don't think you'll lose, but just imagine it as a 0, right? Over the next 4 games, I think you could get 3. I think you could get 3 wins. You could get the 9 points. You could beat Sheffield. You can beat Burnley, and away to Everton. I think with how far away it is, a wee bit of the rest that some of the players will get, I don't think you'll have much of a problem you'll beat Everton. 9 points out of 4 games, let's say. Now, Aston Villa are 1 point behind Arsenal. Over those next same 4 Premier League match days, Arsenal are away to Liverpool, at home to West Ham, away to Fulham, and at home to Crystal Palace. Could Arsenal get 9 points or more over those 4 games? I don't think so. Palace, you never really know. Fulham, you never really know. Let's say Arsenal can beat Fulham and Palace, right? 6 points. But West Ham, let's say that's a draw, and Arsenal, Liverpool, let's say that's a draw, it could be 8. So Aston Villa could be on the same amount of points as Arsenal after the next 4 games. Now, Liverpool, who are on level points with Aston Villa at the moment, of course, will be playing Arsenal in this time period, but they only actually have 3 fixtures in this time period. So if we're imagining they get a draw with Arsenal, that's 1 point straight away. They're playing Burnley, which they'll probably win, that's 4 points, and then they're playing Newcastle. Now, that is at Anfield, but Liverpool, Newcastle, hey, that's 4 each. That's got to be a draw or something. So 5 points, we think, for Liverpool over that time period. So that means Aston Villa will be able to move 4 points, not even including the Man United game, away from Liverpool. Now, Man City will also, like Liverpool, lose a game in hand on Aston Villa. They'll only play 3 matches in this window because of the Club World Cup that they've got on. Away to Everton, you've got to imagine they win. Playing Sheffield, you've got to imagine they win. And then it's Newcastle for Manchester City. So, like, away, really hard to call that, So, definitely 6 points for Man City. But, like I say, Villa are already 4 points ahead of them. Imagine Villa got close to being, 10 points ahead of Manchester City by the middle of January. And then there's another pack of 3 clubs, runners and riders, that we have to consider in this picture as well, that will be getting in amongst it. Tottenham is a club that a lot of neutrals have enjoyed watching this season. And over the next 4 games, Everton have got a really hard set of fixtures coming up, They'll be playing Everton, Tottenham this is, away to Brighton, at home at Bournemouth. I think that's 9 points there. And Tottenham then play Man United at the end of this window. So Tottenham currently 5 points behind Villa. Before we think about Tottenham v Man United, could just maintain pace with Villa over the next couple of games. Maybe there's a bit of a margin to gain a couple of points on them, but it's definitely not a team that could come into the reckoning. A little bit further behind Tottenham is 2 other clubs that will be playing a lot of these clubs and still fancy their chances for getting close in amongst the top 4. I think any good feeling around Man United is going to disappear over the next 4 games. They're away to West Ham, at home to Aston Villa, away to Forest, they'll probably get something there, and then they're at home to Tottenham. So it's going to be a really difficult period for them. They do have an FA Cup game with Wigan that they should win, but I think any top 4 hopes for Man United is going to disappear in this window. And then Newcastle have got a bit of a way to go, and the reason I'm leaving these guys to last, and the reason I'm looking at this little window, is because we get Newcastle away to Luton, at home at Forest. They should be getting 6 points there. They then play Liverpool, like we've mentioned already, but imagining that's a draw for 7 points. And then at the end of this window, they play Man City, 8 points. We're imagining. Maybe City win, whatever. 8 points is more than a lot of the other teams that we've looked at over this window. So Newcastle, for me, are probably going to continue to gain ground on that top 4 space. And for me, that's one of the most exciting things about Villa, is everyone expected Newcastle to be in amongst it. Tottenham and Ange being in amongst it is surprising, but it's not like, people, some people were like, oh, Ange and Spurs and Maddison and whatever, maybe they could be punchy. Don't think anyone expected them to be as good as they've been, but anyway, you understand what I'm saying. No one's seen Villa doing this, except for anyone who watches these videos on this channel, obviously. And then after we get this set of games, the fixture we have is Aston Villa at home to Newcastle. Now, Villa have had a lot of 6-pointers that they've got great results in, but Villa fans will remember the Newcastle game from earlier this season, and wouldn't that be exercising some demons right there? 9 points, maybe even 12 if you beat Man United. Wouldn't that be mental? 12 points if you beat Man United would put you top of the league. Not even thought about that in these projections. We're trying to just put that to the side. Just think about what we could actually, reasonably forecast here. Now, there might be a bit of reality that'll set in later on as time unfolds, because will Aston Villa win the league? Who knows? I definitely think they're going to be a really strong contender. I've really enjoyed watching them this season so far. And, from strength to strength on the go. In the last video I did about Aston Villa, I was talking about the main things they need to address in the January transfer window and exactly what could stop them from doing all of this stuff. If you want to check that video out, it's on screen now, as well as some other stuff that I've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. I hope you enjoyed this one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share and retweet. Are Aston Villa genuine title contenders? And I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.